Hi, I'm Sandra D. Robinson. I'm the founder of Charisma on Camera Media Training Studio in Los Angeles, California, and this is Interview Technique. Understanding what makes an interview great is necessary information for those on, well, either side of the desk, so to speak. So whether you're the interviewer or the interviewee, knowing the best way to structure an interview is the foundation for a successful media opportunity. And knowing how to handle an interview as the host or as the guest is a powerful skill if you are establishing yourself as an expert in your field or you're wanting to reach the masses with your message. Of course, understanding what makes an interview intriguing is more than just structure. So if you're in the hot seat, then knowing your main points, being really solid in your visual brand, and getting their call to action in every single time are your goals. An important thing to remember here is you need to be your most engaging self. I know this seems like it would be ridiculously obvious, but well, maybe it's not. Because many new spokespeople actually think that they have to bury their most engaging self, their most engaging traits in order to come across as looking like an official or credible spokesperson. They actually just look boring instead. So be your passionate self, gesture, convey warmth, and smile as long as it is appropriate. So if you're the interviewer or the host, well, if the interview is boring, it's your fault. No pressure. Seriously though, I had a coach say that to me years ago, and it stuck with me because in so many ways it's true. But it's also true that as a person leading the interview, you can get the most intriguing story if you just have an idea of how to structure your questions. Now, along with all of this, you must be ready to handle the unexpected situation, or if you're on the receiving end, the unwanted questions. What if, as a host, you're asking away and you have a non-responsive, one-syllable responder as a guest? What if you're asked a question that you don't know the answer to on the receiving end? Or worse yet, one that you wanted to avoid completely? What do? Well, these situations could lead to a disastrous experience, it's true. And it could be embarrassing, and you could be damaging to your brand, your business, and your reputation. Well, hang on. Before you decide that this interview stuff is way too risky and there's no way you're going to consider it, know that all of these scenarios are easily handled with a little bit of preparation and understanding. So, there's really nothing to fear. We're going to be covering all of this, and I'm going to show you how to implement the techniques and tricks in this video immediately as they pertain to your situation. So, you may host your own show, or you may be an expert guest on someone else's. But knowing how to maintain the conversation with meaning, a deliberate call to action, and, well, your own brand of charisma, it's your most effective intent. Now, before we get into structure, I have to take a moment to honor the story, your story. You see, every one of us has a signature story that flavors everything that we do on camera. It makes sense because our story is what makes us who we are today. So the interesting thing is, most times people will leave out some of the most important elements of their story because they think that it's not necessary, it's too simple, the situation was too embarrassing, or maybe they just feel like they don't look good in it. Well, here's where my phrase, present, not perfect, is so important. You see, the best stories are those that resonate with the brokenness in each of us. So to be there in the moment and open about the lessons that made you who you are today, that's what can really create that connection to your audience. And connection is otherwise known as rapport. And so when you have rapport, you can move people. You can accomplish enormous amounts of action with rapport. You can move them emotionally, and then you can move them into action. So if you're an expert, people are looking for three things. And by the way, most of this is subconscious. So it really just turns out to be a gut reaction, or so people think. But the three things that they're looking for is one, that you are like them, that you get them. Number two, that you have the experience and the knowledge to be able to help them with their problem. And number three, that they can trust you. So your signature story, like any other good story that's been handed down from generation to generation in families and tribes worldwide, has three components. It has a situation, a struggle, and your success over that struggle. So how did you win? What lesson or blessing came from the struggle that built you into the expert that we see today? This is what we want in your story. Of course, you'll have more than one story. Every story has potential to be used as a metaphor to instruct or inspire. but we react pretty darn well to stories. You figure we've been learning from them since we were kids. Our favorite fairy tales like Snow White, Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, even the stories of more modern characters like those in the animated movies like Cars or Toy Story. There's little lessons in there, and we may not even realize it at the time, but when we were little, they were really effective. As adults, stories are the most dynamic way to move people to action. Documentaries can spark attention and movement for a charitable cause. A tale of success can start a fire under the employees of a corporation to build a strong team. You get the idea of why it's so important to spend some time getting your story down. And get a few of them, actually. You can do this by journaling, but working with a coach might actually be the most time-effective way to fish those prime stories out of your past. Remember, I did say that you may not recognize the most powerful elements until you have some feedback. Now, I know avoiding telling people about my personal struggle in front of the camera was something that I did for a long time. And just to be myself, to be in my truth, in dealing with my extreme shyness, my lack of confidence, and that long period of time of struggling, it not only helped me understand how to help my clients own their space, but it's what makes so many people be able to identify with me whenever they come and work with me. You see, that's the part that they say, well, she's really just like me. It's that little portion that we discussed earlier about knowing that I get them, that I was embarrassed about my clumsiness and the long struggle. See, I thought as an expert for a while that I had to have it all together, from the very beginning, that I should be a complete natural, gifted from birth to communicate on camera. Well, it's silly, I know that, because those 7 years of struggle and the 13 different coaches, they gave me plenty of stories that people can actually identify with. So instead of hiding those embarrassing things, I now am so appreciative that I can share them. We really could spend a whole day or more on your signature story. And since we don't have that time, let me just leave you with this. If you don't know your signature story inside and out, ask yourself why you do what you do. What is the best thing about what you do? What was the most embarrassing thing or the worst thing that happened to you in your business and in your life? You may want to start to go back and revisit these things, because that's where you can start to see the construct of a powerful story. It may take a third party, like a coach. Just keep that in mind. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the structure of an interview. Now, I'm going to take this from the point of view of the interviewer. Now, the reason for this is that as the interviewee, if you have an understanding of what a good interview should be, then you might be able to help create one of those, even if you're sitting in the hot seat. So the first thing you need to do is research. If you're going to be interviewing somebody or you're going into a media opportunity, research that outlet that you're going into. So no matter which side of the questions you're going to be on, watch the show more than once if possible. Understand what are the audience demographics. What is the audience psychographics? Now, if you don't know what that is, I know it's not a very common used word, but basically, it relies more on what are they thinking, what do they value, what are they really looking for, what is the question in their head whenever they're going to be watching you. What is the rhythm of the show? Is it fast-paced? Is it free-flowing? Is it easy? Who's the host? Who's the anchor that you're going to be sitting with? And what's their sense of humor? What's their style? Learn to build quick rapport with people, and it's not just the interviewer's job, it's going to be you as the interviewee being helped as well. Think about this, is there a running theme or a joke that resurfaces on the show? Because if you can tap into that show in this way, then it helps to make it seem like you belong there. It can seem flawless. Have they ever run a segment like yours in the past? And does the info compare or not? So can it be referenced? Should it be referenced? That's just a little something that you might want to, throw into your pile of tricks. Know your subject. So if you're the guest being questioned, it really pays to know inside and out what the latest statistics are, anything that's in the news that might pertain to your specialty. You see, the benefits of being a guest expert is they can actually really increase your business. You have to be ready for it though. So if you have a new product or you have a website where you'll be able to help people and help the masses and really create a difference, being a guest expert is perfect for you. If you're still building your business and you don't really have a call to action that somebody can step into right now, in other words, you don't have a book, you don't have a program, you don't really have anywhere that they can go, you might want to just sit back a little bit until you're really ready for it. Something that you want to consider if you're going in as a guest expert: what does the audience most need? How can you deliver it? And then put together some bullet points of what you most want to include. What parts of your message are crucial to give to this audience? And don't forget, what is your call to action? You have to always have one, even if it's hidden, even if it's subtle. You want to make sure that maybe if you can't actually refer someone to your website directly, have some sort of a call to action that they can move forward in their life and do something that will be different for them from the way they were before they actually saw you on the show. What are some of the latest statistics on your subject? As I said, producers love stats. Know your interviewee. Now, if you're conducting the interview, what does your audience most need to know from this person? What are their most recognized accomplishments? The dates and years for them, if possible. What is the current reason for this interview? Do they have a new book, a new movie, a new product? What is it? What are they looking to benefit from being there? And what are the latest statistics on his or her subject? See, the more you know, the more you can engage in conversation. Establish rapport with your interviewee, your subject. Do that by researching the person. What's their story? And what's the story under the story? Don't just do a simple Google search. See if you can find out what makes them tick. Speak to anybody that might know them. Start your conversation on safe ground. Maybe even speak about their family life, their favorite dog, their horse, or their first love. Maybe music for an actor. Here's an example. I use this a lot. Barbara Walters, I think, is one of the best interviewers ever in the history, and she's done amazing things for women in the news. But she interviewed Vanessa Williams years ago, right before the Emmys. She was nominated for Ugly Betty. So Barbara began the interview at the piano, asking Vanessa to play the music that her father had played for her when she was little. She was just sitting there and singing and remembering her childhood. I truly don't think that Barbara could have got her any more comfortable. Most of us even forgot that Vanessa was a singer. We were so used to seeing her as this beautiful actress. The result? Barbara got Vanessa to talk about those pictures that were the reason that she lost her Miss America crown years ago. And I don't think up until that point, I don't think anybody had been able to actually breach that subject with Vanessa. She had acknowledged it and had never talked about it, but she did with Barbara. Now, quite often you'll hear them say, "You're not gonna make me cry, Barbara." But that phrase originated because of her well-known skill to create such rapport, that deep emotional conversation. And that often revealing interview can happen in that way. Getting your subject in the most comfortable position possible could include placing them in a comfortable setting. In the case of Barbara Walters' interview with Miss Williams, she was in her own home. Interviewing someone in their childhood playground or the venue of their first concert or someplace that can have a historical or emotional meaning to them, assuming, of course, that there's a budget for the location shoot and that the location has related meaning to the purpose of the interview. The Inquisition shouldn't seem like one unless you're on a hardcore news report and you're digging, and trying to find discomfort in that subject. There should be an easy conversational flow to your questions. The hot button question. Know ahead of time what your hottest hot button question will be. What is the hot button question? Well, it's the question that could be a controversial subject, or the pink elephant in the room that nobody has acknowledged. In the case of Vanessa Williams, the hot button question was the one about the nude photos that essentially launched Vanessa's career. Also, knowing the hot button question can cause discomfort. In some cases, the subject may deny an answer. They may get angry. They may even threaten to walk out. That's the reason to be prepared with the comfort question, I call it. This is the topic of questioning that is not threatening at all. In fact, it could be quite the opposite. It should place the subject in a very flattering light, appeal to their ego, and just make them feel fantastic. So a comfort question can come either immediately after the hot button question, or if the subject gets too upset, in lieu of that question. The tough question should never be the last one. You want to leave the interview on a friendly term. You want to be very comfortable with the subject, trusting you, in fact, so that you can go back to them for follow-up interviews, or maybe even a referral to another interview subject. Hey, you never know. The question should provide a story of sorts. Think about what story you want to tell with the interview, and structure your questions with that in mind. Believe me, I have endured some really poorly planned questions from some ill-prepared interviewers, and I don't know, maybe you have too at this point. You know how hard it is to fall into a comfortable rapport when the questions seem to just sort of meander around. Interviewing is an art form, it really is. The more you do, the better you're going to be. So knowing how to bring your awareness to the line of questioning and the underlying story can bring a sense of professionalism that most seasoned interviews have learned along the way. There are different types of interviews. So what if you're doing a different type of interview? I mean, this breakdown questioning seems great for a really lengthy, emotionally loaded dialogue with somebody, but what if you don't have that time? What if, for instance, you're doing a red carpet situation or a sports sideline interview? What if your subject matter is fun or it's even comical? Well, here's the thing, the basic concept stays the same. But for obvious reasons, in these situations, modifications are going to have to be made. There's always the same 5 elements: research of your subject, establishing rapport, deliberate line of questions, and a main question, if not a hot button question. A comfortable close is the last thing. Now for red carpet, your research can be really key here because in the case of a crowded red carpet, it's a media blitz. Knowing a way to stand out from the other reporters other than yelling louder, which believe me, I've seen an awful lot of that. It's just maybe a little bit of research on that celeb. After all you have are a couple seconds to grab their attention and maybe another couple seconds to get an answer to a question. So how do you do this? Learn a little bit about them. Learn about them personally if you can. Was it their child's birthday recently? Was it their anniversary? What can you say that might have them turn their heads in your direction? And then smile, that's that quick rapport. Hold out that microphone and ask your question. In a frenzy like a red carpet can be, getting to the main question first and having a second ready to go, but be in the moment, react to what is happening. And don't get distracted because you have to keep your celeb's attention. You have to keep their attention on you. It's a really challenging situation, that red carpet, but it can be fun. It's exciting and it can be full of glamour. For sports sidelines interviews, what if you only have a couple of seconds? I mean, the game is ended and you're trying to capture the reaction from one of the professional players as they're running off the field and you're running alongside. This is serious crunch interview style, okay? But there still has to be that rapport. So the longer you're around, the more the players may get to know you and they'll respond to you. Flattery can get you everywhere. I mean, start with a complimentary statement and lunge into the question about the game or their performance. And don't forget to leave them graciously with a thank you. That's your quick, comfortable close. So you see how a modified version of the same 5 steps exist in just about every interview situation. Now, for lighter venues and comedy, the same elements apply. Now, if this is going to be your genre, I cannot suggest emphatically enough that you find an improv acting class if you haven't done one at least. Find one at a local college. I mean, that'll do. You don't have to spend a ton of money, but learn really just to live and relax in the moment, to play and have fun, no matter what is going on around you. I recommend improv training for all of my clients, actually. They're going to be hosts of shows, or they want to be. Nothing can loosen you up better and help you to bust through any self-limiting self-consciousness like a good improvisation acting class. It can scare the crap out of you, which it did for me, but it's one of the best things that you can do. Now, what about surviving the hot topic question? Well, knowing how to establish a quality interview, no matter which side of the desk you're on, is the best form of self-preservation in the media. Speaking of self-preservation, what happens when you are the one that is in the hot seat and things get uncomfortable? Realize as your job as a spokesperson, you are in charge of transition or bridging from the question that you are given to the message that you want to share. So to help you do that, you can use a line. You've seen this happen before where somebody will say, well, the most important thing to remember is, or as I mentioned before, and then you get back to your own line of questioning. You'll have certain bullet points or topics that you're going to be ready to share, but know the degree of importance for each point. So know which ones are crucial to share and which ones you can kind of let go. The reason for this is, well, there's a few actually. But for one, live TV or news shows can often be running a bit behind. It's very common. So suddenly your 5-minute segment is down to just 3 minutes. So you don't want to be rushed, but what you want to do is choose the pieces that you think are really most important. Another reason is the host may press you for more information on a certain topic. Now, don't panic if it diverts you from your expected lineup of points or questions. Just be willing to go there if it seems helpful to the audience. But know that you may have to sacrifice a point or two towards the end if you spend more time on an earlier topic. A good thing to remember is it takes just one good nugget to remain with an audience in order for them to become a fan and possibly a client or an advocate for your business. Just one nugget. What do you do if you don't know the answer? Well, you never make anything up or flat out lie. It can be a slow boiling death in the media if you do that. So if you are without the proper information to answer, simply say just that. Find your own way of stating it, of course, but you can just simply say, I don't have all the information that I need to answer that question right now, but I would really love to get back to you on that. You don't want to answer. That's one other thing that you might have to face. Maybe this is something that you really just want to avoid completely. This is a hot button question for you. This is where media training comes in as the most valuable tool. Have prepared a response to any question that could surface about something in your past or your present that does not flow congruently with your current brand or your business goals. So sometimes with my private clients, I refer to this as a back burner topic. So I never suggest attempting to hide something that can be found out. So I prepare my clients with the perfect response to any controversial topic. Bad history with marriage fidelity, business funds, or any criminal charges or anything like that. Well, what was the honest and good thing that came from that experience? What was the silver lining or the blessing that you might call it, an otherwise negative experience? So putting that positive thing forward in your answer still acknowledges the situation, but allows you to be able to put it in a different light. State your answer with absolute finality, meaning there should be nothing else to ask about it by your tone of voice. If the questioning continues to a point where you really feel violated, say so politely and ask to move on to the next question. Here's an interesting opportunity, a panel discussion. Now, this can be a whole hour topic in itself, trust me. Let's just say in every panel, there will be contrasting opinions. That's what makes it interesting. The best advice is know your brand, know your purpose, and know your limits. So what pushes your buttons and how to keep yourself in control is something you really have to be in tune with. Notice and keep yourself in control. You cannot control the panel or any one person's opinion. So just represent and protect yourself, acknowledge the contrasting opinions, and be on top of your emotions. It's perfectly acceptable to agree to disagree. There truly are so many reasons to be interviewed or to interview. And if you even think about it, if you can just be the person that interviews experts in related fields and share that with your followers, well, that's one where you can really create a movement. You can create even more fans. And I want you to have fans because with fans, they spread the good news about you. And you can really make that impact that you were designed to make. I do believe that media training is extremely important if you're going to be putting yourself out there in this way, because you have a reputation that you need to protect, and you always want to come across as the authority that you are. Well, you know where you can find us because there's plenty more that you can learn. I hope to see you soon, and don't forget, charismaoncamera.com. Bye.